Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking about the horror show at Extreme Rules. We had 7 matches, 6 on the main card, 1 on the pre-show. So let's start off with that little odd one out. It was Kevin Owens taking on Murphy on the pre-show.
It was a for a pre-show match. It was pretty good. Can't really complain. It was like less than 10 minutes, so it wasn't like they were ever going to have a tremendous match. But it was good for what it was.
Yeah, it was just a little slotted together match, put on the pre-show, give you a little bit more wrestling for the show, and continue a bit of a feud. Pretty much all it was there to do. But once you kick off the main show, they did that with a bang, as the New Day were defending their SmackDown Tag Team Championships against Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah, this match was announced after we did our recording last week, so we couldn't talk about it because it technically did not exist as of Wednesday last week.
Yeah, for the record, I did Facebook message someone my prediction from the page. So if you're listening, you know I was right. You know I picked this. Everybody else trust me.
Yeah. But yeah, I was shocked that Shinsuke and Cesaro won. Pleasantly. I'll say that.
I think
but shocked nonetheless.
It just opens up a few more opportunities and a few more routes they can go. It was a tables match, so a quick out of nowhere finish is possible. And just as a note, that finish was brutal. And then, with now new champs with Cesaro and Shinsuke, you got a few more feuds, a few more opportunities with what you can put together over in the SmackDown Tag Team division, rather than having the New Day at the helm still.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. It's just, I don't know, it just feels like we're just spinning our wheels here.
Yeah, they don't have the hugest and most compelling division, but they're making do with what they've got. And for now, we're going to have to see where Shinsuke and Cesaro's at least immediate first challenger is. We don't know who's lined up. Maybe the New Day to get a bit of a rematch. Don't know what's going to be happening with this title heading into SummerSlam.
Yeah, it's at least we have more of an idea than we probably would have if they had kept the titles on the New Day. Because there are a few teams that are floating around. Because we could do like the Lucha Dragons versus Cesaro and Shinsuke.
Yeah, there's a couple face teams there. They could always end up in it. They could always end up being some sort of multi-team match kind of thing. They've got options with what they do with Nakamura and Cesaro and this title going forward. So let's see where they head to for SummerSlam. And then one belt that we think we know where they're going with for SummerSlam, Bayley successfully defending her SmackDown Women's Championship against Nikki Cross.
I think it says more about how she had to win the match than the actual outcome of the match.
Yeah, there was a lot of dirty finishes.
Yeah. But for her to beat Nikki, who was definitely not a upper card person with a Ric Flair type finish, that elevates our girl Nikki really up the card, because that makes her more important. Because in order to beat her Bayley, who's had the title for a year and a half minus a week. Yeah, I keep throwing that week in there because I won't let them forget it.
Yep.
Had to cheat to retain her title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it as you say, it elevates Nikki. It just makes Nikki look like more of a threat because Bayley couldn't beat her 1-on-1, so Bayley had to resort to cheating, and it's the kind of bolstering up that we're going to need of a lot of this talent, because once Bayley versus Banks ends up exploding and happening, and that's all been and done, whoever walks out of that with the title is going to need people to challenge them standing behind them from the get-go, or they're going to stumble. And Nikki could potentially be one of those people, just be standing there when the dust settles.
Yeah, I really like Nikki. I especially was won over when she had the match with Asuka in NXT.
Mm-hmm.
So to see her elevated here as a potential singles wrestler definitely gives me hope. I do hope that after SummerSlam we see some sort of shakeup. Whether it be another draft or just a random superstar shakeup thing. We do need some redistribution of the stars.
Yeah.
And Nikki could definitely benefit from that. Whether it be shifting over to Raw, to be part of the whoever wins the Raw Championship at SummerSlam story challengers, or going after Sasha or Bayley, whichever one of them comes out with the title.
Yeah, you mentioned Raw Women's Championship there, so that's a good segue. We're going to jump on over into the Raw Women's Championship match. It was Asuka versus Sasha Banks. It was clouded in controversy, and we get a rematch later on.
Yeah. This is one of those classic kick the can down the road situations. Clearly, we can't have Asuka lose, and we can't have Sasha win, but we can't have Sasha lose either at the moment. So what are we going to do? We're going to have a no contest, and we're going to have Bayley act as a referee to steal, quote unquote, the Raw Women's Championship for Sasha.
Yeah, it was I guess the between the bell content is really going to be overshadowed by that finish, as you say, with Bayley and the ref shirt and stealing the title. But the match was good before that. Just something I just want to note there before we move on from the match. But yeah, it's set up a rematch later on down the line. Asuka versus Sasha Banks, who's the real champion, and maybe then we're gonna see the explosion.
I'm gonna say on SmackDown afterwards.
Okay.
Because I think after they after that match happens, they'll be goaded into a tag title defense on SmackDown. Whoever does form a team to take them on will then be the new champions when Bayley betrays Sasha.
Okay.
By the way, I would like to point out that in the first match, the entire match, Sasha was wearing Bayley's championship. Not like over her shoulder, but actually around her waist. I would like to point that out. That was a neat little thing.
Yeah, it's called foreshadowing.
But also told me, darn it, Nikki has no chance.
Yeah. I think we know pretty much the women's championships at SummerSlam, right? Like, I would be surprised if the matches weren't Bayley versus Banks for the SmackDown and Asuka versus Shayna Baszler for the Raw. That's I feel like where we were heading.
Keeping an eye on everything that's going on with Asuka of late since she returned.
It all lines up, and they're two very good matches as well. For what we could potentially see at SummerSlam, but those are my expectations. Anything outside of those, I'd be a little shocked by. And talking about being shocked, we're gonna park the horror show at Extreme Rules for a second, right? And we're gonna jump over to the Gold brand. NXT. Keith Lee, he vacates the North American title. There's going to be a tournament of sorts, with some qualifying matches into a ladder match for his title at NXT Takeover XXX or 30. And if I said the first match involved some knockout talent, some absolute powerhouses, Roderick Strong, Johnny Gargano, and Bronson Reed, who are you picking to win that?
I would have picked Bronson Reed. Okay. Because it would have been something new. But yeah, I wouldn't have expected it. Which is exactly what happened. And I think gives us a good sign of what's to come with this whole tournament. Because I think we're going to get a bunch of people that haven't had a shot at the title yet. Mm-hmm. Or haven't won it yet. Because next week we have Dexter Lumis, Finn Balor, and I cannot remember the third person right now. But, no, it's Timothy Thatcher. Gotcha. Is the third person. You would expect Finn Balor to win that match. Nah. I expect Dexter Lumis to win that match.
Yeah, let's go Lumis.
To continue with the theme of new people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that this is a chance to elevate the mid-card a bit and introduce new blood. Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what our NXT champion said when he was relinquishing the title, that he wanted to give an opportunity to as many people as possible. Hence the triple threat qualifying matches.
Yeah.
I suspect there'll be 4, and then a fatal 4-way final chance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or something like that. Or some sort of match that ends up with giving somebody a chance to get into it as the 5th person. That match, last night with Bronson Reed winning, became so much more interesting. Because it would have just been another opportunity for Johnny Gargano, another opportunity for Roderick Strong. But it's somebody new. Somebody who we can now get a chance to know and maybe get another star. Get another Keith Lee. Get another Adam Cole.
And he's Australian, which is like almost New Zealand. It's close enough. I'm gonna take it. But in celebration of Bronson Reed's upset on NXT, earning himself a spot in the North American title ladder match at NXT TakeOver 30, we are going to be playing his entrance theme for you right about now. And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh, and we're going to go back to our horror show that we parked off to the side because we've still got 3 more matches left to cover. And let's look at a little bit of Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio with a little bit of eye popping.
I did not expect this outcome. I was convinced it would be Seth that would lose an eye, quotation marks, because it would work with his character. Mm-hmm. But nope. The legend, Rey Mysterio, lost an eye, quotation marks.
I love the quotation marks.
During the match. So yeah, I have no idea what they're going to do now with Rey. How does Dominic come along for SummerSlam to try to get revenge for his daddy?
I think so. I think that's the SummerSlam match.
Yeah, that's what I think. Because because on Raw afterwards, Aleister Black tried to take up the mantle, but lost. It wasn't a clean loss, but it was a loss.
Yeah, I think this very much leads into a Dominic coming back to get revenge for his father, and then we get Seth versus Dominic in Dominic's debut at SummerSlam.
My name is Dominic Mysterio. You blinded my father. Now you must die.
This is anime. Wrestling has just become anime now.
No, this isn't anime. This is a Mexican Western.
There we go. A or B. But I think it'll be a good little debut for Dominic. You know, we've been teasing that debut for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up happening at SummerSlam against Seth. Pretty high-profile debut, so here's hoping he can take the ball and run with it.
Yeah. There definitely aren't many better people in the ring to have your first match with than Seth.
Yeah.
So
he'll keep him safe.
I actually expect Dominic to be wearing Reg's mask when he has the match.
I could see it. I just want to see what they're gonna do when that debut eventually does happen. You know, obviously he's just been dominant. We got Dominic Mysterio. You go Rey Mysterio the Third. You can give him a mask. He can wrestle without it. He can do the old NXT Andrade thing of wearing the mask as an entrance and then take it off to wrestle. Like, there's options, and I just want to see what they're gonna do. Obviously, Rey's days are numbered, but Dominic's are just beginning. So let's see how he does in the ring. And two guys who we know how they did in the ring, Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. It was for the WWE Championship, and Dolph Ziggler could list any stipulation that he wanted, and he opted for an Extreme Rules match, but only an Extreme Rules match that applied to him.
I'll give WWE credit. That's actually a really interesting, unique way to do the stipulation. I never thought that they would try. I just figured they would default. It's an Extreme Rules match. All right, let's go. But personally, I wanted him to ban the Claymore kick, force Drew to win the match without his biggest weapon. But this was also the match was really good, in my opinion. Drew getting frustrated that every time he wanted to use something, he realized he couldn't because he would lose his title, because the additional stipulation was if he got disqualified or counted out, he would lose the title.
Mm-hmm.
So, and him taking all that damage and having to rush back into the ring to get the break the count.
Yeah, it just added such a unique air about the match, you know. It wasn't paint by numbers. It was something different and unique that added to watching the match and made it fun to watch.
Yeah. And just a reminder, it only takes one. It only takes one Claymore to end a match.
Well, we might see a second Claymore because Dolph Ziggler has asked for a rematch, and McIntyre did agree as long as he was going to pick the stipulation.
Yeah. Which I think is just the most awesome thing of pettiness that I've ever seen. Just about, because it's alright. You want to play that way? I can play that way too.
Yeah.
You won't find out about what the stipulation is until the bell rings.
Yeah, it'll be a taste of his own medicine a little bit. Yeah. And I imagine Drew wins.
Yeah, I think next week's Raw is going to be pretty packed.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have the Raw Women's Championship match, and I assume also have a WWE Championship match.
It would make sense.
And then we've got to figure out where we're going for Drew afterwards.
Well, originally Drew did come out asking for a worthy opponent for SummerSlam, so I feel like that's the route we're gonna head in, where someone's gonna either be attempting to prove their worth, and they're gonna have like maybe some matches to figure out a number one contender, or we're gonna have somebody pop up out of nowhere who's a big name, who's gonna go in and do it, or something.
I think there's a pun in there. Yeah, I think it's going to be an attack from from what appears to be a new stable, led by a certain 15-time champion.
I'm
That
trying to think of a
might
joke.
be the worthy opponent that Drew is looking for.
I can't even think of a joke here. I was trying to find one. I'm like, who's another 15-time champ I could make a joke about? I was going to go with someone who held the hardcore title a lot, and then, no. So what do you think the SummerSlam match then is going to be, if that's the case, if the stable's fighting?
I think it's going to be Drew versus Randy.
Okay.
It does appear on surface, at least at the end of Raw last Monday night, they ended with Orton giving Big Show a punt kick. But before that, he got help from Andrade and Garza.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like there's at least some sort of alliance there, if not a stable. Or at least a potential brewing of it. Because there's definitely friction between Selena and her two guys.
Yeah.
Who then went out and helped Randy Orton. So the pieces are coming together for it. And I think Randy Orton is the one guy that is the worthy opponent for Drew.
Yeah.
Especially since we went over everybody who could possibly do it.
We did that last week. We're not doing it again. Weirdly, though, we did come up with Andrade as an option, so it does start to line up. And just something I want to quickly mention before we get back to the Wyatt Swamp fight is that we do have a new 24/7 champion, MVP's stable, picking up some more gold.
Yeah, we have Shelton Benjamin suddenly joining the Hurt Business, or the Beatdown Club on a bigger stage.
Yeah, good little stable there. Who's going to be wrecking all up the mid card? Because technically, MVP thinks he's the United States champion.
Yeah, because apparently Cruz was unable to defend his title due to injury. We don't really know any specifics about it, but yeah, he's acting as if he's the champion, but he was never actually declared the champion. Which leads me to believe that SummerSlam will have a ladder match with two titles hanging from it.
Yeah.
The original and the new one.
I could see it. It'll be interesting to see where they're going to go. Because you got that whole stable on one side, and Apollo's got his own little crew of guys that'll be willing to help him, including Mustafa Ali, who just returned.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the end of the Hacker character.
Goodbye, Hacker character.
But yeah, it was nice to see Ali back. Ali is an amazing potential spokesperson for WWE. Mm-hmm. Especially when you consider that he's a person of color and a former police officer.
Mm-hmm.
So he can definitely speak towards those things. Because he had an amazing, moment on Raw Talk.
Yeah, I was going to suggest people go watch Raw Talk.
Talking about police, everything that they have to do with getting everything better on that end, and his experience. So, yeah, check it out if you have the network. And I also think Ali can never be Hill. Which is what he does. He doesn't want to be one anyway. But yeah. I think he's one of those guys that can never be heel.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, definitely check out Ali's bit on Raw Talk. It's definitely worth the watch. And I believe, I double checked. There is a free version of Raw Talk that does include it on the WWE Network. So you can check that out, even without an active subscription, as we shill the WWE Network. And now we've got about 30 seconds left to talk about the Wyatt Swamp fight between Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman. The match that has the most to unpack of any match.
I'll give you the lead.
Alright. Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman, bunch of throwbacks. Alexa Bliss showed up to distract Braun at one point. It was weird. It alluded to their previous friendship, turned possibly romantic, one-sided. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Ultimately, in the end, Braun Strowman loses by being eaten by mosquitoes, because that was a swamp, and that water had to be full of them. But then The Fiend shows up, sort of lining up that we're getting Braun Strowman versus The Fiend at SummerSlam, as we had expected. But it's not like Bray Wyatt survived either, to be fair. He was also last seen in the water, so... But yeah, overall, decent little cinematic match. What we'd expected, and probably one of my favorite cinematics that we've had so far.
Hey, sounds good.
I think I used all of our 30 seconds. We might come back to this match. We might next week. But we are out of time this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye, B.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/Wrestling Radio, Twitter page, twitter.com/Wrestling Radio, and we'll see you next week.